For the last 5 years, we have been involved with the Midwestern Higher Educational Compact, and that's called MEC. It brings together leaders from 12 Midwestern states to strengthen post-secondary education and OER. MEC is one of 4 regional higher education compacts in the U.S. You might, if you're familiar with these compacts, there's WICHE, which is the Western states. There's NEBI, New England, and SREB, which is the Southern region. So my background is not only in IRs, it's also in the OER. So I kind of have a different perspective, I have feet in both camps. And I recently received grant funding from MEC to do research and to support OER initiatives at USD. So anyone that has gone to college has experienced one of the hidden costs of higher education, which are textbooks. They're really expensive. And I was talking to a nurse last month, and she talked about when she was in school 10 years ago, how high her loans were and how super expensive the nursing textbooks were. And students today have a lot more flexibility. You can get things, you can rent things, you can find things like on Amazon or used. You know, a lot of places will have used textbooks, but they still, on average, will still spend over $1,200 per academic year on textbooks. So to address this, many institutions are looking at open materials and textbooks as alternative to commercial textbooks. And these efforts initially began with developing textbooks to cover many common introductory courses. And this is what we did at USD. Our solution was to set up a cohort. So each summer, our Center for Teaching and Learning manages that. And the previous session, somebody had asked about how do you support OER in your institution repository? And they mentioned an organization just like our Center for Teaching and Learning, and that allows faculty to learn about open, free, or reduced cost textbooks and courseware resources and options. So in the OTF, the Open Textbook Fellowship, participants learn about open course materials and courseware resources and options, and they work with the CTL staff to adopt and incorporate open materials and courseware into their courses. And they participate in assessing student outcomes and the courses, and they serve as faculty mentors for others on campus to further encourage open materials and adoption at USD. And they're given a stipend, which always helps, right? If they adopt open materials for their course in replacement of commercial textbooks. So this chart shows the CTL that they trained 60 instructors of more than 70 courses. And they said that it has impacted more than 12,000 students and conservatively saved students over $750,000 in textbook costs. So now that USD's Open Textbook Fellowship has operated for 6 years, the library, we've been thinking about ways to support this and provide a place where faculty could deposit their own content and have it be openly accessible to everyone. Right now, everybody just, do their own thing, and there's no central place to store it. The reason I got involved with that is they usually, the CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning, asks me to come and speak to their cohort. It's online every summer, and I talk about ways to link to library resources, like with persistent URLs, and also I'm involved in accessibility on campus, so how to use materials accessible in their courses. So And then I mentioned I also received that MET grant. So I began with working with the CTL to talk about different platform options that are available and what might work for USD. And as the deliverables for that MET grant, one of it was to create a LibGuide. So I did that, and another deliverable was to come up with a platform. So the next slides will cover those platforms that I researched. And you probably know that there are several other institutions that curate and manage their own OER collections, such as Rice University's OpenStax and the State University of New York System's Open SUNY textbooks, as well as the City University of New York's OpenEd CUNY. When I attended a MEC summit in January of this year, we got to see a presentation by the OpenEd CUNY folks, and they talked about their initiative, and I'll show a couple of things about that in a little bit. So there are a lot of different kinds of questions that we worked through in the process of determining an OER platform at USD. And I did not go into this thinking about the institutional repository as a platform. I kind of happened into it by our consultant from the University of Minnesota. We have a consortium called Minitex, and they help us license resources between South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota, cooperative buying, because we can't purchase, we can't afford, we're just a tiny little institution, even though we're the University of South Dakota, but we don't really have a lot of money. So anyway, that's where I first got turned on to the idea of an institution repository as the platform for OER. And so these are the questions that we felt were important to ask. And a biggie, especially for me, but maybe for you too, is how technical your staff is that would support the platform. And also output controls like compliance factors. We talked a little bit about accessibility today. So we've got that ADA Title II accessibility mandate coming up next week. So those are other considerations. So first of all, looked at OER Commons. It's thought of, they call themselves a referatory, and it links to open textbooks, courses, assignments, labs, and more. A lot of times with our summer cohort, they will tell, the CTL will tell the faculty about OER Commons. So it also has an open author tool, which allows educators to create their own OER directly within the site. And then something that some faculty are interested in is creation and formatting. So there's Pressbooks, and I'm sure most of you have heard of Pressbooks. Our CTL was like, we need to get Pressbooks. When I mentioned that, I had a grant and I was looking into platforms. And it's comfortable for people that use WordPress. So if you are a WordPress blogger, the platform is similar, and it uses H5P interactive. So students can do like, if they're like a wiki, if the professor requires the students to comment on things, or if they need to do interactive quizzes like that slide says. And also it allows faculty to create, share, and reuse content. And Pressbooks is either an SaaS, software as a service, or you can also do self-hosted. And I will mention that our Minitex consultant from the University of Minnesota, he looked into licensing that for us, and it was way too expensive for us. There's no way that they could afford negotiating a license for us, and there's no way we would ever even be able to pay for it ourselves. So that was out of the question. LibreTexts. So LibreTexts is, so if you're a STEM university, like the previous presentation, they talked about STEM, and if you need to use interactive content that allows you to assemble and modify content, this is good. They use a wiki approach to content, and they have a homework platform and an AI writing tool, and a content commons and a project management tool and an LMS. And the thing with LibreTexts, though, that I found that people said that it was overly complex compared to the other models, and they also use software as a service, SaaS, as their delivery model. So now we'll cover the repositories. So repository platforms like our Digital Commons are great, or also DSpace and Figshare. I also looked at other platforms, and they're good for long-term preservation. As we know, DC is great for long-term preservation. And here are some questions to consider. As I mentioned, as we went through this process, we asked a lot of questions. So do your outputs need indexing or cataloging? Do you have to control outputs, as I mentioned, for compliance, such as ADA Title II accessibility? So as I mentioned, our IR is on the Digital Commons platform. And some of the things that we were really attracted to, as I mentioned, we began in 2018, and the cost savings, the price was right. It's really great. Student engagement, I use that for ETDs, also for honors theses, and that's probably what the majority of the content is in our IR, a lot of student content, and also graduate projects. As you guys know, I don't have to sell you on it, but students love it because it's a place they can put their scholarly content, and it's permanent, right? So it's got flexible metadata fields and layout, and flexible collection creation, and support for all kinds of media, content types, file types. Students come with all kinds of different file types all the time, and especially like with data sets, faculty use all kinds of crazy file formats. The biggie, another biggie is discoverability. The SEO, search engine optimization, that really is super important. It also has the clear licensing options, as we talked about earlier, the Creative Commons, that's really important. So this is my little summary that I put together, comparison as a glance. And what I recommend is, my summary of my research is that if you are going to host OER, if you have the ability to, if you've got some money to purchase a publishing platform like Pressbooks, that would be awesome, and then combine it with your institution repository like Digital Commons, and that would be a really good professional startup. If you have a publishing platform, your faculty could create and format their content, and then the library would be responsible for depositing the final stable version into the IR, as I mentioned before, for compliance and also permanent archiving. And so all the questions that I have put up so far in this presentation, they helped us to navigate towards setting up an OER presence in our existing IR. I already said that I'm a one-man shop, so Our users don't currently need authoring tools. They're able to create things on their own. The CTL really wants us to go to push for something, so we'll have to figure out how to do that in the future. And I don't have any dedicated tech editorial metadata to help. And most importantly, our IR, which we call RED, it's familiar to our campus. A lot of different faculty, schools, and colleges are depositing. Most of it is student content, but the departments that they're coming out of, they know that this is a really good place. I do have some faculty adopters that champions, I guess you would call them. But so, as I said, it's familiar, and that's why I thought this would be a really great place to get started. Whenever we do anything, projects or anything that we're going to do different on campus, the stakeholders are really super important. So I wanted to talk about that next. So for the students, where the students access OER is important. Something a student might ask is, can I access it on my phone? Also, does their instructor need them to do interactive quizzes? And if they did, they'd have to have something that has that H52 functionality, or would they have to do, if they're a math student, would they have to do live coding for a math type project? So interactivity might be a consideration. So for faculty might say, I have 2 days before my class starts. How easy is it to get my stuff in there? Because, I want them to go to the IR to pull the content. And they want to know how easy the platform is. It's interesting to hear about this morning about how everybody approaches inputting content into their IR. And I tend to leave it for self-submission. So most of the things that I have set up for faculty, I'll have them self-submit. I do that for the students as well, but then, and that just seems an easier way to handle a lot of things. As with students, faculty will need to think about if the platform allows student contributions in interactions, and also it's important to know what the licensing options are. So that's something that faculty would want to know as well. So for administrators, these are the important points that administrators would want to think about. Of course, the cost would be important if you're an administrator, and then also the amount of people that it would take to make it work. Is it one-man band like me, or would you have student help or other staff or faculty? Next is impact, and I'll give some examples. So a great feature of the DC platform is impact tracking, and we know that it's got awesome functionality. You can go to the dashboard and pull all kinds of wonderful information. And these are some of the questions, that you can find off of the dashboard, where they're located, how they're getting there, and affiliations for your readers. I mentioned that I had sat in a presentation by the CUNY OER staff earlier this year. And this slide shows their activity. And holy cow, they've got a lot of use. So of course they're huge, but I just thought this was really nice because it shows their impact of their OER. And they also use all the platforms that I've used. SUNY, they have a lot of support, and they're able to do that. But so this is their IR page and on their Digital Commons page, but they also, as I mentioned, they use all the other platforms that I've already talked about. Here's another example of the UFC stars. Yay! I look to them a lot, and you guys do a lot of great things, but this is kind of nice because it shows 3D models that a faculty was putting up in the IR, and you can support, you can link out to sites like Sketchfab or SciArt for hosting. And the thing I thought, I don't know if you can see that very well, but if you can't, at the top there's a link or information about the Creative Commons statement that might be important to faculty, and I like that that's up in the header there. This is kind of neat. The East Tennessee State University, they organize their OER content in a meaningful way. They arrange their courses by open books and then open data, and they have videos and podcasts. I love this University of the Pacific. In the left navigation, they've got lots of information about OER, and I like that. If they don't have a good background in OER, you could give them like link to your LibGuide or what is OER, and they also have that little introductory video embedded there. So I thought that was really nice. And they also have information about grants. So if your campus have grants available like we do at USC for people that attend the summer cohort, you could put something like that there. I just thought it was kind of a nice page. And this is actually University of Northern Iowa's LibGuide page. It's not the IR page, but their DC page is very well arranged and informative, and it's similar to the Pacific page. In the Teaching Commons, if you haven't seen that yet and you're interested in OER, you definitely need to go here. This is built on the DC platform, and it includes multimedia support, versioning, and geolocation, which is kind of fun, to support the larger needs of publishing. And it showcases high-quality open educational resources from leading colleges and universities. It's curated by librarians and their institutions. And it's, of course, hosted by B Press, and it includes textbooks, course materials, lesson plans, multimedia lectures, K-12 materials, and more. So overall, overarching to me anyway, because that's sort of what I'm about, is discoverability. And one of my colleagues who I work with, as I mentioned, I also work with the archives and special collections in the digital library. And we're looking at statistics all the time. And when I pull up my dashboard from Digital Commons, they're so jealous, because we can show all this wonderful information. So discoverability is a really important part of the DC Commons.